Hello, and welcome to Arcadia University's BI327 Histology course. This is the lecture series on connective tissue, and in part one of this lecture, we're going to take a look at general characteristics of connective tissues. As with all of the different topics, it's important that you go through and review the objectives for this lecture series. They're available both on the website as well as the syllabus, but it'll give you an idea of what things are important as we're going through this topic. Now, as a quick review, there are four basic tissue types. We've already talked about the epithelial tissues, where essentially we're looking at cells which are closely packed together, forming sheets along surfaces of the body. Now, this lecture series is going to be taking a look at connective tissues, and instead of the epithelial cells, where the cells are packed very close to one another, what we're going to see in connective tissue is that the cells are going to be widely scattered. So they're going to be distant from one another, and in the intervening space is going to be extracellular, outside of the cell material that these connective tissue cells are going to be involved with producing. So if we take a look at this, again, the overall characteristics, we got an image of a connective tissue on the right-hand side of the slide, is that the cells are scattered away from one another, and they're separated by a lot of extracellular material. So there's a lot of things that these cells are going to be producing. They're going to be filling up the space. And it's not just to fill up the space, it's that they're producing products that are going to be involved with providing some type of structure or function to the connective tissue within this region. From a developmental perspective, connective tissues are derived from mesoderm, that middle layer, that middle germ layer, very early on in development and gastrulation. So if we take a look at this, and again, kind of coming up with some generalizations, but the basic function of a connective tissue is that it forms what's referred to as the stroma, where it forms the structural framework of the other organs. And so it's going to be there supporting the muscles, supporting the nerves, supporting the vasculature, the blood vessels, and all of the other tissues and organs. So it's basically holding the body together. And so the functions of specific types of connective tissues are going to be based on their mechanical properties, primarily based on what's within that extracellular material. So they're going to be involved with binding together, holding together tissues and organs. It's going to be involved with establishing compartmentalization within the body. It can be there for support of organs or support of the body as a whole. It can be involved with physical protection. It can be involved with immunological protection. So essentially the immune system cells, the blood cells in essence, are going to be a portion of the connective tissue. And it can also be a form of storage of material, if we're taking a look at adipose cells, fat cells. Okay, so if we take a look at the connective tissue, we said that the basic characteristic is that we've got cells that are widely scattered away from one another, and in that intervening space is this extracellular matrix, this extracellular material that's outside of the cells. And so we got to define what is this extracellular matrix, what is this material that's making up the majority of the connective tissue, and what is it that's giving rise to the characteristics, the functional characteristics of the connective tissue. So if we take a look at the extracellular matrix, we're going to see that it's going to be composed of ground substance and fibers. And so we're going to look at each of these components as we go through this lecture of connective tissue. Now, when we take a look at ground substance, we're going to be looking at some specialized biological molecules. The first of which are these kind of wire brush structures. They're going to be glycosaminoglycans, abbreviated as GAGs. The glycosaminoglycans are essentially going to be associated with core proteins to form these structures called proteoglycans. And so if we take a look at it, glycosaminoglycan, glyco for sugar, amino for protein, glycans for sugar. So we got this component which has some amino acid structure, some protein structure holding it together, but lots and lots of sugars. And then we're going to see the proteoglycans, which are essentially these wire brush structures that we're looking at. And the proteoglycans, proteo for protein, glycan for sugar, are again protein components with lots and lots of sugars. And so if we think about this, the characteristics of sugars is that they're going to be water soluble. And so that means they're going to be dissolved in the tissue fluid, and they can be more than just dissolved. they're going to be drawing water into that region. So these are going to be referred to as hydrated molecules. They're going to draw water in, and by draw water in, it's almost like a little sponge. And so it's going to draw the water in, and it's going to pull the water, hold the water within that region of the connective tissue, and it's going to give this connective tissue some gel-like consistency. So you can squeeze it like you can squeeze a sponge, but then it's going to recoil and it's going to draw the water back in. The actual matrix viscosity and rigidity is going to be determined by the amounts and types of these glycosaminoglycans based on the characteristics of these sugar and protein elements that are found within the ground substance. Now, the proteoglycans themselves, these wire brush structures, are going to be associated with larger structures of these hyaluronan molecules are going to be holding everything together. We're going to have keratin sulfate, chondroitin sulfate. All of these things are going to be holding this into these huge molecules. They're going to be scattered throughout the connective tissue. And again, they're going to be there to draw water into the connective tissue, to give it some resiliency when we're taking a look at it. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at hoffmanj@arcadia.edu. Thanks, and I'll see you at the next lecture.